What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Shonen Express podcast. I am Shonen Express, here to bring you a podcast in this format for the very first time. I used to make weekly newsletter videos, and if you watch those videos of mine on YouTube, you know kind of the deal about what these podcasts are going to be like. My plan here is to go over Weekly Shonen Jump every week and just some of my thoughts on the various chapters and all of that stuff. So I will attempt to put, timestamps in the description of these podcasts, so that you can know, if there's a series you don't want spoiled or you're catching up on or something like that, you can go ahead and skip around to the different times. But I'll put those timestamps in the description for you. But yeah, this podcast is pretty much just going to be me going over Weekly Shonen Jump every week. So I hope this can become a regular thing, and I hope you all tune in every week to hear me, give my spiel about what I think is going on in the magazine and how I think things are going. So without getting too much into that, I want to jump kind of right in. So this week the cover went to Undead, Unluck. We got that cool color page. I really like this color page of, you get Andy on the one side and Billy on the other side with the round table with all the the characters of Under and the characters of the Union kind of fractured out there. I really liked it. I thought it was a creative color page. I've been a pretty big fan of Undead Unluck for most of its run. As of late, it's kind of slipped for me in my my own opinion of the weekly rankings, but it's definitely a good series, so I wouldn't take that away from it. And this chapter was pretty good. I love, mainly about this chapter, I like the trust that we get to see between Chikara, who is a relatively new member of the Union, and Top, who we've seen since the beginning of the story. We got Top's backstory last week, and that was good to kind of flesh out his character a little bit, because honestly we didn't know a whole lot about Top before then. And obviously Chikara we know how scared he is of most things. So it was cool to see the trust level that those two have built up, and that Top goes full speed, full blast, trusting that Chikara will stop him when the time comes. And so it was a really good chapter. I liked it, and I thought it was a good conclusion to this fight scene between Chikara, Top, and Undecrease. I forget his actual name, but I thought he was a decently cool villain, and so it was a good conclusion to that fight. But most of all, the art this week was on point. This was some beautiful illustrations, some beautiful two-page spreads, along with the color page. The two-page color page. It was a beautiful chapter this week, so I definitely want to compliment the art. But yeah, Undead Unluck got the cover. It was a good chapter. So, moving on, we got One Piece chapter 1025, and it sounds crazy for me to even say that. There's 1,025 chapters of One Piece. There's so many chapters. But I'm glad there's so many. It's such a great series. But this week specifically, I love the Momo fear. I love that Momo is afraid to fly. I think it's amazing that he even though he's aged up, and they even talked about this. Shinobu said this, that even if he gets aged up, he'll still be an 8-year-old boy in his mind. And I love that we get to see pieces of that, like his fear of heights. We still get to see that fear coming out. So I love the Momo fear. I think it's really interesting. But what I find more interesting is Yamato's devil fruit. That mirror move thing that she did, whatever that was called, I forget what it was called, where she shattered her appearance and then came out of, jumped out of it, almost like it reminded me of Orochimaru's Jutsu, where he would shed his skin almost, but it's definitely different. I'm very confused. I know we know what Yamato is, but I'm not very familiar with that creature. Again, I forget his name. Tell me in the comments if you know the name of that whatever Yamato is. But I know we know its name, but I'm not familiar with what it does. And even less am I familiar about what Oda is going to specifically do with it. So I'm interested to see that, but it definitely piqued my interest this week. And I gotta say, we get to the end of the chapter, and we see 3 people up here fighting Kaido, ready to go. And those 3 are not the 3 I thought we were gonna see. And we did already have a showdown where Luffy, Kid, and Law were up there and were fighting. But that ended pretty quickly, and it's my guess that this is the final crew. So it'll mainly be Luffy taking Kaido on, because I think Yamato is pretty gassed out at this point. She's not going to be a whole lot of help in this fight, and Momo is still an 8-year-old kid in his head. He might be a little, you know, he might be worth a little bit of effort, but all in all, I don't know how much he's going to provide to this. But the fight seems to be Luffy, Momo, and Yamato versus Kaido, which is not the trio I thought I was going to see. And I love that ending panel where, the ending page, rather, where Momo, like, kind of grows a little bit of a backbone against Kaido. He's mad, and he's in the game, and I'm so happy to see that. I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see more One Piece. So it was definitely a good chapter this week. But moving on, this week we got chapter 38 of Sakamoto Days. Another great manga I liked. Started out more as a gag manga than it is anymore. I think it's really transitioned into more of a, like, I don't quite want to say battle manga because there's no real power system, but definitely this is a manga that is not as much gag as it was before. But it's still really good. It's very good. This week we got acquainted with the enemy assassins that are going to come after Sakamoto. We got to see the 4 of them in more detail. Last week I believe we got like the picture of the 4 of them, but now we get to know them, and their names are just weird. So Dump is strange to me. I don't know if Dump is a guy or a girl, based on how they attacked the guy there. There's some kind of spikes going on. So I'm confused about Dump, and I'm kind of weirded out by Dump, so I don't really want to go any further on that one. Apart is fun. I like the obsessive-compulsive nature where he's stacking the books back on or he's got to go out and buy Volume 7 so that the collection is complete, even though he's just killed the guy. I think that was interesting. Saw seems cool. I like that he's part of the group. I think if these 4 act as a unit, which they might not be, but if they are, I really like that Saw is part of this, because he seems to bring like a chill level to this group that I really like. And Minimalist just seems like the stereotypical villain. He's like, I've killed everybody I need to kill, and that's, you know, I mean, it's not very relatable, but he's a villain, so that's okay. And I think that the other members of this team will make up for him, and maybe there's something we don't know about Minimalist that we'll see. But that's not the only thing we got to see this chapter. We also got to see the Order, and the Order is so dope. The Order of Assassins are so cool to me. We got introduced pretty early on to that main guy. Oh man, I'm forgetting his name now, but the guy with the black hair, the normal looking member. We get introduced to him pretty early on in the story, and then that girl in the black dress, she's very interesting, and that Takamura, the old man Takamura that sliced the car in half, he was so cool. I'm so interested about these guys too. I want to know more about their backstory. Even that guy with the metal jaw was interesting, so I want to know more about them and about this fight. But all in all, this was a cool introductory chapter to what this next arc is probably going to bring. And, you know, as always, I can't wait to see Sakamoto and more fights and all of that. So it was definitely a good chapter this week for sure. Then we also got Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 158. I'm so glad that Jujutsu Kaisen is back in the regular rotation. I'm so glad that Akutami is releasing chapters again. It's good to see. I really like Jujutsu Kaisen. It's one of the mangas that I'm actually collecting right now in like physical, you know, form. So I'm very glad to see that Akutami is back creating this manga, because it's really good, and I want to know more. This chapter was a lot of talking and explaining, as most of the chapters recently have been in Jujutsu Kaisen, and there is a bit of info dumpy nature to that. But, you know, I'm okay, because I don't quite yet understand this game. and we'll get into that here in a minute. But I wanted to highlight the fact that the principal is dead, and Panda doesn't really react to this, but I like that Yuji says, like, wait a minute, he was like your dad. Like, he almost says he was like your dad, but Panda's like, it's alright. I just like the maturity in this giant anthropomorphic panda bear about the death of what is his father. So it's an interesting situation. I thought that well, I hope we get more about it, is what I'm saying. I hope we get to see more into Panda's, you know, psyche a little bit there. So I hope we get to see more. Hikari, Kinji Hikari. I don't know if we call him Hikari or Kinji, but I'm going to call him Hikari from now on. Hikari is fun. I like him a lot. I kind of expected to like him. I've liked all of the characters. Anytime that the story tells me this character is really strong, I usually end up liking them as a person as well. You know, obviously, you know, Satoru Gojo, Todo is my favorite character in the whole show. So these characters that they're like, hey, they're really strong, I usually end up liking as people. Even Okotsu, I think I liked a lot when we got to see him finally in the manga proper, not in, you know, his own spin-off, or not really spin-off, but prequel, I guess, to the main story. So I end up liking them, and Hikari is no exception. I like Hikari a lot. I love how chill he is with this situation. They were like, he was like ready to go. He was ready to kill Yuji until Yuji, you know, until the situation is explained to him, until he sees that Gojo is been trapped, and then he's like, okay, I'll help break him out of that. I think that was really cool. I like that about Hikari. I like that when Fushiguro says that he's the head of the Zenin clan, he's like, oh my gosh, I can make all of my hopes and dreams come true if I just hang out with these guys. And so now Hikari is totally on board, and I really, really like that. But the second half of this chapter was about the addition of a new rule and finding these ancient sorcerers that are trapped in other people's bodies, is what I assumed. So with the addition of the new rule, now I guess players in the game can see the info about other players, as Yuji's info is in there, and they find out that Yuji's actually in the game, even though he didn't go to a colony yet. We find that out later in the, you know, in the chapter that you, how to kind of look that up. Fushiguro does that with Yuji's little transponder guy. But what's way more interesting is that there are ancient sorcerers who have made deals with the villain, and I apologize, I can't remember the villain's like actual name. It's the guy who has Ghetto's body right now. They've made deals with him in the past, and they've been somehow put into other people's bodies or taken them over to now fulfill their end of the bargain in this calling game. And it seems as if Sukuna might actually be one of them. I think it was confirmed in the beginning of this story that Sukuna was a curse user in his life. And so I am super happy that this has been confirmed, or at least sort of confirmed, that he's not actually a curse. A curse spirit, rather. He was a curse user who gained so much infamy and power that he became a curse spirit. I'm just very interested in Sukuna. I'm very interested in where the story is heading with this calling game. And so it was a good chapter. It was a good expositional chapter, for sure. So that brings us to Dr. Stone, chapter 210, that came out this week. Good Dr. Stone chapter. I feel like I used to kind of almost ignore this manga, but Dr. Stone is a really good manga, and you should definitely check it out if you haven't. But this chapter, we got more about building of the rocket. We've got, you know, some of the schematics, you know, the usual kind of simplistic schematics that we get, that Senku usually gives us, and he gave us those for the rocket, and so that was interesting. I do like the science aspect. I like the real world application aspect of this manga. I think that's really cool, and something that would be hard to do as a mangaka, I think. And I like that. I also really like that Japan is going to be their hub. I like that they're going back home to where they were. I think that this means that they'll be able to depetrify Ishigami Village. So that'll be cool to see some characters that they left in the village and all that stuff. But what I love a lot about this chapter is Chrome. Chrome and a little bit of Suika and Sai, and their want to create a return vessel for this trip. Now, I do like Senku's plan of having the three of them. It looks like, based on the illustrations, clearly Senku, Ryusui, and I forget the main physical guy, the villain of the first arc. Oh my word, I can't believe I forgot his name. But you know who I'm talking about if you read this manga. The plan was for them to petrify themselves then on the moon, but I love that Chrome is like, no, we've got to figure out a way to get them back here, and now they're trying to build that return rocket, almost as an offshoot of the main plan. I really like that, and it also showed me something interesting. So for a while there, I thought that Dr. Stone could be one of the manga that is going to end relatively soon, right? Not, probably in the next month, but maybe in the next year, right? I thought Dr. Stone had a chance of ending, once they reach the moon and they take out this final guy who has been a part of the story really since the beginning. I'm kind of wondering what more they have. And one of the things I was thinking was, it would be a great opportunity if they did go through with the plan to petrify themselves and then, have a little bit of a time skip till they can get back, unpetrify them, and end the manga like that. I think that would be a really good ending. However, this chapter made me think that that's probably not going to happen. I don't see an end in sight for Dr. Stone for a while. I mean, as long as Boichi and the author, I forget the author's name, want to keep going, I don't see a reason for them to end this manga. It's definitely successful, and it's a good manga. But this was a good chapter, and that's just kind of what I wanted to say about it. So, moving on, we have Chapter 31 of the Elusive Samurai. Now, this is a manga that I've kind of soured on over the course of its run. I like it a lot less than I did at the beginning. I was a huge fan. If you guys watch my weekly newsletters, you'll remember when this manga came out and I first, I reviewed that first chapter. This is a manga that I had high hopes for, but those high hopes have kind of tapered off. Although I will say I still like it, and this chapter was still pretty good. What I liked about this chapter was Tokiyuki is enjoying the fight. We don't see this a lot from him, and so it was interesting to see him kind of enjoy the fight and get into his element like that. I enjoyed seeing that. I thought it was really cool. But beyond that, right? We also got to see, I believe his name is Kojiro. He's the training guy, the guy with two swords who looks a lot like Himura Kenshin from Rurouni Kenshin. But we got to see him do that crazy slash move where he cuts off the Kikuchi guy's hat and top knot. He is really cool. That Kojiro is really cool. I really like that he's there. I don't know. It's just cool. I don't know what else to say. I thought it was a cool moment. And this is a manga that I think in the next couple weeks will probably end. And even maybe next week, I think this might be the manga that takes the hit. We'll get to in a minute about Candy Flurry and how that ended this week. And usually Shonen Jump ends more than one in a series, and then it'll start more than one in a series. So my guess is 2 to 3 manga will end in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then they will, maybe a month will go by, a couple weeks will go by, and then they will start 2 to 3 more manga. That's usually how it's gone so far, and so I assume that's how it will continue to go. And so I think the Elusive Samurai is one of the ones that will end in the next couple weeks. I think what's going to probably happen is there's going to be a little bit of a time skip, and then we are going to see the full-fledged Tokiyuki with his, full-fledged kingdom about to commence the fight, but we probably won't see any kind of final climactic battle, which is a little disappointing because I think the villain of this manga is very interesting, the main villain. I would like to see more with him, but it's okay if we don't get it. I'm not going to be heartbroken over that. I think that this manga will probably come to an end. But moving on from that, this week we also got Chapter 77 of Mashall, Magic, and Muscles. This is a manga that I've gone the opposite direction on. I used to not like this manga much at all, but now I really, really like it. It's one of my favorite in the magazine right now. This chapter didn't have a whole lot for me. It was, I mean, cool action scenes, like the fight between Mash and Order. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I like the wrap-up. I like the implication that Mash is able to get out of that sand really quick. So some of those things were cool, but mainly, I want to focus on the, what is essentially Mashall's version of the Triwizard Tournament from Harry Potter. You got the 3 schools competing in this tournament, and Mash is going to be one of the representatives for the Divine Visionary position. So I like this. I like bringing other, schools into the fray. I think that that's an interesting proposition, and obviously we got to meet what will probably be this coming arc's main villain in the son of Innocent Zero. So, it's interesting, but it's definitely was kind of a setup chapter. And they even make a joke about that. I love the joke where Mash is like, I'm allergic to info dumps. That was kind of funny because it was a very info dump kind of chapter where we're learning all about this. And especially for a Mashall chapter, that's not normal for this manga. So I loved Mash's reaction there. But it was a good chapter. It was, a good setup chapter. I'm excited to see the arc that comes from it. Next, we've got chapter 29 of Witch Watch. This is another chapter. This is another manga this week that got a color page. I was fine. It was just kind of a picture of the 3 main characters there. Nico, Moe, and Khan. Yeah, I think. Just a picture of them. It was okay. It was nice to see the color, but it wasn't anything crazy. But it was definitely a decent chapter this week. So the witch melting was insane. So she begins to tell them, who's really behind the plan to take Nico out. And then she disintegrates. She grows to regular size again and begins to crumble. And that was crazy to see. It was really crazy to see, but interesting. It really intrigued me to see what is going to happen. Above all, I gotta say, I really like the artwork in this manga. And I've actually never read Sket Dance, the other manga that this author is very famous for creating. I've never read that, and so I don't really know if that stands up in the same kind of way. I'm pretty sure that's a gag manga, but I've never read it, so I don't know. But this art is really good, and I think really good at conveying these action scenes. Funny enough, I think he's really good at writing action scenes. I loved the making up with Keigo. I love that Keigo is now part of the group, and even at the end of there, he moved in with the rest of the clan. I really I wonder if this house is not just gonna keep on taking people in more and more as the story goes on. But so far we have now 4 people living in Moe's house, and so it's just it's funny, but I wonder if we're just gonna keep adding people to the house like that. And of course we had the obligatory bathhouse scene that every slice of life or sports manga or just manga where a bathhouse might exist, everyone has to have this scene. And so this was the bathhouse scene, although I will say not too fan servicey, which I appreciate. But that's really all I have to say about Witch Watch. I would say that this might be one that's ending, but I actually don't think so. I think Witch Watch is more popular than I think it is. I think it's got a little bit more life left in it before it ends. So I don't think that'll be one of the ones that are ending in the next couple weeks. Next we have Mission Yozakura Family is what we have next. Chapter 97 came out this week. Big fan of this manga. I loved the power. This blooming power that Taiyo now has is crazy. Specifically that Amaterasu thing he said, where he kind of almost phased through Kyoichiro's wires, was so cool. It looked so great. The art in this manga, in this chapter specifically, but in this manga in general, is beautiful. I love looking at it. I love looking at this art, and it really appeals to me. It might be a personal thing, but it definitely really appeals to me. And so I loved all that stuff with Taiyo. I also really like Kyoichiro. Kyoichiro is actually my favorite character in this manga. And so I love his reaction. I love that he does let Taiyo pass the exam. He becomes a silver rank spy, which is really cool. And he he ends up, you know, kind of helping him along at the end, as he's supposed to. So I really liked that. I thought it was a good chapter overall. And next, we come to Chapter 20 of Blue Box. Blue Box is a manga that is not up my alley at all, and I actually don't know that I've ever talked about Blue Box in any video that I've done before. I don't think it was out when I started, or when I stopped, rather, putting out videos. I think it was long enough ago that it wasn't quite out yet. But Blue Box is one of my favorite manga running in the magazine right now, and that's really strange because I'm not a big one for, like, romance manga, but I really, really like this one. It's really good. This chapter specifically, I loved Chinatsu's reaction to the bad-mouthing of her, saying she's nothing special. I love that her attitude is, I just gotta work harder. I thought that was an amazing attitude, and overall, again, just gave me these feels of, like, I understand why Taiki admires her so much. Like, he's so, you know, in love with Chinatsu, and it's part of that. Part of that is this nature, and I thought it was just a really good way to take that. And honestly, if you were reading this, and you know, this is something that you have to struggle with, people bad-mouthing you wherever you are, you know what I mean? This is a great reaction. Just saying, you know what, I'm gonna let my actions do the talking for me, instead of trying to talk back and fight back like her friend wanted her to. This is a good lesson even for us in our lives now. So, I also want to say that the ending panel of this manga, where we see Taiki finally beat Haruo in a match. It's a practice match, and it looked like it was like 23-21. It was super close, but we finally see him win a match. And it's this determination that Chinatsu inspires in him that allowed him to reach that level. One of the things I think is really amazing about Blue Box, and I'm sure I'll do a video about, you know, why you should read Blue Box probably in the future, but one of the things I really like is this, how the author is able to combine the themes of sports manga in with the themes of romance manga, and use each of these, you know, these aspects of his story together in what feels like a very natural and realistic way. I really think it's a talent, and I'm so glad that this manga exists, and I hope it's not one of the ones that ends relatively soon. I don't think it will be. I think it's probably pretty good, but yeah, good Blue Box chapter. That's what I have to say. Next, we've got chapter 59 of Ayakashi Triangle. I don't have a whole lot to say about this manga. This manga I've definitely gone downhill on. I've gone up and down on this manga, but I am not, if you have listened to anything that I've put out recently, I'm not a big fan service guy. I don't, you know, I don't like really fan service in my manga, and that is pretty much what Ayakashi Triangle is. I read everything in the magazine, and I'm going to keep reviewing everything in the magazine here on these podcasts, so I'm going to keep reading it, but I'm not a big fan. If you are a big fan, that's fine. Good for you. It's just not for me. But this week, I did think that this week was a more my speed kind of chapter. A lot of action, a lot of fighting, and that's what I like to see. I will say, Matsuri's mom, and I forget her name, but she is really cool. Like, I love seeing the pinnacle of what the wind exorcist ninja, you know, magic can do. I really liked seeing that. I thought it was cool for us to see, you know, what she is fully capable of when she puts her all into it. And, you know, so I thought the fight was cool in general. I also would like to predict right now that Matsuri will be bringing Suzu back to the forefront of her mental state, and the reason that I'm not totally sure what to call Matsuri, the reason why that will happen is this, like, love connection that they have, for sure. That's what's gonna happen. See it coming a mile and a half away, and I'm sure it will be sufficiently awkward because of the sexual tension. So I'm positive that's what's gonna happen in the next few weeks. Now, I will say, I do think that if you have your little danger meter out, what does Shonen Express think is going to end in the next couple weeks, this is another manga that I think can be on the chopping block. I think that we are at a decent place in Ayakashi Triangle to end the manga. If they ended it now, that would be acceptable. Although I was positive they were going to end it earlier, and they didn't. So, there's that too, but, you know, the show goes on, I guess. But I do think if it ends in the next next couple weeks, I won't be surprised, I'll say. And it has, listen, it has 59 chapters. That's a successful manga. It's definitely, it's gone for over a year now. That's a successful manga, so it could end now, and that'd be fine. But moving on, we've got chapter 305 of Black Clover. Black Clover is the other one that got the, is another one that got a color page this week. Definitely deserved it. The color page was to announce the popularity poll that they had for Japan. And what I want to stop, and the color page, by the way, looked pretty good. Is, you know, again, pretty fan servicey. With them, the top 3 winners of the popularity contest in the water there, but it was a good color page. I will say I am shocked that Noelle is the most popular character in this story. Not that I don't think she deserves it. I think Noelle is a great character, and I like her a lot, but I was shocked to see that she was number 1 in this story. I mean, that's crazy. Asta being number 2, that makes sense. He's the main character. And then number 3 is Noct. Noct is like a brand new character. And I mean, I say that, but he has been around for probably a year or more now. But Noct is not very old in the grand scheme of things. And so for him to have number 3 right now is incredible. Now, I think Noct is a really cool character, deserves this position at number 3, but it's just interesting. It's interesting to me to see that breakdown. But yeah, it was a cool color page, and I loved the breakdown there. Now, as far as the chapter goes, I want to talk about Longris and how cool I think he was in this chapter. Longris is like this really like evil character for a lot. Obviously, being Finral's brother and his more gifted brother at spatial magic, of course, there's going to be a certain amount of animosity there. And Finral being part of the Black Bulls, of course, we're going to root for him. And so there's a certain amount of anguish there, but Longris in this chapter really was very cool. I love this almost you know, his little quote that like Yuno is the vice captain of the Golden Dawn, like his surrendering of that position to Yuno is really cool. I think shows Longris's growth. It reminded me a lot, if you guys read Dragon Ball Z, at the end of Dragon Ball Z, when Goku is fighting Buu as a Super Saiyan 3, fighting Kid Buu, Vegeta stands there and kind of monologues to himself about how Goku is the strongest Saiyan. He gives it up. And this is like a super impactful moment, one of the biggest moments in Vegeta's character, I think, totally. But a super impactful moment, and that's what this kind of felt for Longris. I mean, he has taken so much pride as the vice captain of the Golden Dawn that now that he has relinquished that, he's given it up, it feels similar. It feels emphatic like that, and I loved seeing that. And also this Spirit of Euros attack that Yuno has right now looks amazing. I mean, I can't wait for that to be fired off. I can't wait to see next week what's going to go on with that. So I'm super excited about seeing that. But that's really all I had to say for Black Clover. Great chapter. Definitely go read it. Very, very powerful for Longris's character if you're a Longris fan, but it's really good. That brings us to chapter 19 of Candy Flurry, and as I mentioned before, this is the last chapter of this manga, which is crazy because I don't actually ever think I talked about this manga in my videos. I might have talked about it like early on, but I haven't gotten to review any of these chapters, and so this is the last chapter, and I'll get to review it. I will say the fight scene in this last chapter was cool. I love the help that, and I can't even remember his name. He's the Rochetti agent that was with Tsumugi in the beginning. I love that he like comes and helps her. I think that's a good tying up of some loose ends there. It was fabulous art. I mean, the art in this chapter was turned all the way up to 11, and I'm sure that's because this is the last chapter. They want to leave a good impression in readers' minds, and I can appreciate that. And I just thought the time skip was good too. I thought it was a good way to end it, to kind of have a little bit of a time skip. We see Tsumugi as a Rochetti agent later in life, able to, you know, proudly sport her lollipop powers the way that she wants. And so I thought that was good too. Overall, I mean, I'll probably at some point make a video about what happened to Candy Flurry, you know, and what happened here. But overall, it was an okay manga, and I think what happened is it just lost its footing. You know what I mean? It came out swinging with a really interesting and new concept in this candy-powered world, but it kind of just got lost in the sauce. You know, it kind of just didn't really know what it wanted to do. It got too specific, and that, I think, caused problems, and here we are with it ending prematurely. And as I said, the ending of Candy Flurry makes me think that there are other series that are going to end here in the near future. So I'd definitely be on the lookout for that, for sure. But moving on, we've got High School Family, chapter 33, I believe, which had a double page color spread, which was really nice. It was a good color spread for the chapter this week. Now, not a whole lot of things happened this chapter. This chapter was a funny chapter, I think, though. I love all the birthdays. I love that the whole Itenai family's birthdays are like right in a row, because of course they are. I really like that. I loved specifically that the birthdays kept getting more and more ridiculous as they kept going on, and then crescendoed with Kotaro's birthday, which was just like a normal day for him, which is so funny. I loved the lion that came in, the teacher dressing up as a lion to come in to talk to Gomez. That was hilarious. The zombie apocalypse for the dad, for Ichiro Itena. I really like it. And then for it to all end just normally for Kotaro was really funny. So it was a funny chapter of High School Family. Definitely go read it if you haven't, but that's really all I had to say about that. And then, of course, we got Magu-chan, God of Destruction, chapter 58 this week. Another slice of life kind of gag manga. And so we got another Napataku chapter this week. Napataku is an interesting character. I kind of like how funny he is, but I like him much more as a side character than I do as a main one. That was kind of apparent this chapter, but I did like this chapter. I love the simple goal he has of just starting a shop that will then lead him into an empire that controls the world. I think that's really funny, and I love seeing that. And so this simple goal will just get him to that grandiose vision. I also really like the dream stuff with the illusion goddess, whatever. I thought that the fact that the maid cafe part was all a dream, and then he tries to do it in real life and it doesn't work. He ends up working in the coal mines to pay back the money. It's all kind of really funny. So it was a funny chapter. It was a good chapter. I'm just not always the biggest fan of Napataku chapters. I like him much better as a side character, but this was a good one, so I was happy to read it. Next, we have Me and Roboco, chapter 56. Me and Roboco has become maybe my favorite gag manga in the series. I'm a big fan. I'm a big Me and Roboco fan. This chapter wasn't my favorite chapter. I'll say I didn't laugh too hard at this chapter. It was decent. I don't understand the panty shot scene in the beginning of this chapter. If that's a reference to a manga that I didn't get, which is what I assume it is, leave in the comments or whatever, like what that is, if you know, because I didn't quite get it. I didn't pick up on what they were doing there. So if you do know, leave in the comments. I'd love to be able to see that. But I love the confidence. I love the confidence that Bondo inspires in Madoka. I think that's really cool. I love that it works out. I think Madoka's manly form is hilarious. I love that. Roboco's anecdotes just being all about her was really funny. So I love that. And then the mention of To Love Ru, like Into Darkness or something, which I must assume is like a raunchy version of To Love Ru, which I believe is already kind of fan servicey. It was funny. It was funny. I haven't read To Love Ru. That was kind of before I, would have been able probably to read a manga like that. But so I haven't read it, but I can assume enough for this to be funny for me. But it was a funny chapter. It was good. It just didn't have the highest highs that I'm used to with Me and Roboco, but it was good. Next we have Neru, Way of the Martial Artist, chapter 9. This is a new a new series that I have never reviewed before. And it's only 9 chapters in that I'm finally reviewing it. But it's brand new, to me at least. Obviously I've been keeping up with it, but I have not talked about it. So I really like the bow knowledge. I like the real martial arts knowledge that this manga is bringing to the table. I think that it's, you know, it's interesting, and so I like the bow knowledge about how heavy bowstrings are to pull back and stuff like that. I like the girl, and I can't remember her name, and that's on me, but this character that we've interacted with recently, I really like her. I think that she's like one of my favorite characters that we've met so far in this manga. I think she's really cool, and I really can't wait to see more of her as the series goes on. I like her a lot. I, of course, think Neru is great. I think he's a great main character. I love how, you know, almost Goku-esque he interacts with the people around him. He is obviously more civilized than Goku was as a child. He has lived among people. He's gone to school his whole life. But the whole barefoot thing, I just love how, like, otherworldly he feels. And he feels a lot like Goku, and I like that a lot. I think that's a cool thing that we get to see. My question here at the end of the chapter is, what is her plan as she breaks the arrow? I can't wait to see what the plan is there, and I'm excited to see what that could be, for sure. But that's really all I had to say about Neru. Next, the last chapter that we have this week is Red Hood, or it's called Hunter's Guild Red Hood, and it was chapter 10 this week that came out. I love this manga. This is a really good manga. I think that this manga has staying power. If Shonen Jump wants to stay with it, I think we've got almost a little bit of an early Hunter x Hunter feel with this manga. Obviously, the artwork's a whole lot different, and, you know, the story's obviously a lot different, but I get this kind of Hunter x Hunter-esque feel. If you absolutely disagree with me, tell me in the comments, but that's kind of the feel I get from this manga. But I love the reversal of this cops and robbers game. I love that this group of contestants has figured out, you know, Velu included, has figured out how to win at this game by stealing the handcuffs instead of running away from the cops for the whole time. I love that they come up with that plan and put it into effect. I will say this chapter was a little expositional heavy. There was a lot of wordy explanations about this plan in this chapter, which is fine. I do have to understand what's happening for me to understand, you know, what's happening, understand what they're doing. I gotta have some kind of explanation for me. That's fine, but it was a little wordy, a little word heavy for me. But the powers in this manga are really cool. I'm so interested to learn more about it. Specifically the like the nun lady, the priestess lady, whatever she did, whatever like magic ability she had, and how it looked like it was commented on that she's like cursed or something. I'm so interested to see what that means and more about the power system of this world. It just intrigues me a lot to think about that. And I want to learn more about Tilty, is what I'm going to name him. His name in English is Tylty. So Tilty is all I can think of, but I want to learn more about him. I think he's going to be a major character in this manga, and so I would like to know more about him, about his backstory and all of that. And who is quickly emerging as one of my favorite characters is who I'm going to call Mario. M-E-R-R-I-O. The names in this manga sometimes throw me off, but I'm going to call him Mario. He is now enacting the plan that Velu and all of them have set up. So I'm very excited to see what he does. And he is really, I'm liking him a lot. So I got my eye on Mario for sure in this manga, but it was a good chapter. It was definitely a good chapter. So that's all that came out this week. Obviously, My Hero Academia, I didn't mention. My Hero Academia was on break this week. Apparently it was a sudden break, I guess. Horikoshi's kind of known to do that, though. Every once in a while he just doesn't make the deadline or something to get the manga in. So I'm sure it'll be back next week, as it always has been. But it was on break this week. And so, yeah, the only other thing I have to mention is, like I said before, since Candy Flurry has ended, my guess is that 2 or 3 more, or, you know, 1 or 2 more will end in the next 1 or 2 weeks. My guesses being, my biggest guess being the Elusive Samurai, I think, is probably likely to end. And there's a couple others that probably could end as well. But Ayakashi Triangle, as I said, I've always thought it could end at any time. But yeah, so I think that's what's probably going to go on in the next couple weeks. Obviously, next week we'll see. If nothing ends, then I'm dead wrong. But we'll see what happens. But hopefully, what this means is we will be getting new series in the magazine not too long from now, and I'm always looking forward to new series coming up and coming on the scene for me to talk about. So, yeah, guys, thanks so much for listening to this podcast. If you have anything you'd like to say, leave it down in the comments section. Definitely. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, like this video, and share it. I would love for you to do all of that with whoever you know, whoever would like to hear me ramble about Weekly Shonen Jump. But thanks so much, guys, for listening, and until next week, this is Shonen Express, signing off.